Well, hello and welcome to GlobalGEG Open Chat with Trainers. We are here presenting from Australia and New Zealand. And first of all, I'd like to, it's customary here for Australian and New Zealanders to acknowledge and welcome people to this space. So I'll go first with an acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land. I acknowledge their elders, past, present, and emerging, who were and continue to be the storytellers of this ancient land and its people. Steve, would you do the welcome for New Zealand?
Yeah, nice. Thanks, so kia ora whanau, nā mihi nui kia koutou katoa, kia papatūnuku tēnā koe, ki te whare tēnā koe, ki te tūpuna tēnā koe. We acknowledge and respect Ngāiu Māori as the tangata whenua of Aotearoa, and we're committed to upholding the principles and partnerships of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So welcome everyone today.
Thank you so much. So we have a great team here today. We've got Chris Betcher, Steve Smith, Maria, and myself. First of all, I'd like to welcome Chris Betcher from Sydney in Australia. He's Program Manager, Google for Education. And Chris is a really great data man. And he was talking to me the other day about data centers. So what sort of bulk uploads, what sort of data centers are available in Google Cloud? I mean, I tried to have a look at that, Chris, and it was just so.
Hi, Leslie. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Yeah, I was reading something the other day. The number's probably gone out of my head now, but it was the amount of new storage that's added to Google. Help me out here, Steve. Do you remember the number? It was like every day or every week. I can't remember what it was, but it was like thousands of terabytes added every day to the data centers.
And I mean, if you think about just YouTube alone, there's days worth of content going up every hour. And the fact that every piece of data is backed up 3 times in different places, it's exponentially weird. I mean, those of you who have kind of maths bent will get it. It's astounding.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Chris, thanks, Steve. Thanks for that. Chris, I mean, I just can't wrap my head around it. Chris, you're also doing some dragon boating. Obviously, you're not doing any this week down in Sydney.
No, the river's flooded at the moment, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. So there's my husband is in dragon boating as well, and there's a whole lot of skills and a whole lot of team. Did you find that with your once you started taking up dragon boating?
It's amazing that something so repetitive, like literally just picking up a paddle, jabbing into the water, pulling back, and doing that over and over and over again. And you spend your entire, you can spend years just perfecting that stroke.
That one stroke, yeah. The J stroke?
Oh, I don't know what it's called, but there's a technique to it, and it's hard to get. And like anyone can get in a boat and paddle, but to paddle well,
yeah, make it move in one section.
There's probably a metaphor there, Betcha, about getting the little things right to making it go well. You can be bashing your paddles in the water. If you're not getting it right to the smallest degree, you ain't going nowhere.
And then you've got 20 people in the boat that all have to get it right together, Steve.
Yeah.
Which is another metaphor.
Steve, thanks, and welcome, Steve from Google Program Manager for Education in New Zealand. Thank you very much for joining us. How did you get involved with Google training?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's I started playing around with Drive maybe about 9 or 10 years ago in my classroom because I wanted something that you could share without having to make multiple copies and get thousands of copies back. So I started using Drive, and I found a friend at school who was doing exactly the same thing, and so we kind of started using Drive together. And then this crazy new thing called Classroom came out. We're like, oh man, this is going to change things. And then we both kind of went, well, we should teach more people about this. So we kind of became unofficial trainers, I guess, and then started doing some more trainings. And then there was this weirdo called Chris that was running these really cool events in New Zealand. He went, do you want to do a thing? And I went to the thing. And I think one person turned up to my first workshop. And back then I learned you give it a good name. You don't say something really boring in the name, because then people are like accidentally turn up to it because they walk through the room in the wrong place. So I kind of just started doing things and training people, and and sharing the cool tricks and tips I found, which I know Chris hates me saying, but the cool tips for using stuff, and it just grew. And then I this opportunity to step into the New Zealand team came around, and I went, well, I didn't really want to leave the classroom, but I did, and it was pretty cool. So I guess it's just from helping people out really on a small basis that it's kind of grown. That's
absolutely. You would have met some amazing people. You've met Chris Betcher. Who else did you meet on some of those mad sessions?
Oh, it's I remember meeting John Bailey from Google Earth, and he was amazing. He was a volcanologist, and I guess it's kind of him and Mr. Jim Sill and Mr. Betcher. It's their fault I'm here today. We kind of bonded over a love of all sorts of stuff, and so
absolutely,
just really cool people like that, and
I can see Jim Sill here in our group. So welcome, Jim. Jim is from Deploy Learning. Jim does some amazing training work with educators here in Australia and New Zealand, level 1 and level 2, and trainer. He's just finished a trainer cohort. I sent a few of my friends your way, and they said it was an amazing time learning, and they became trainers. So I hope you got lots of good feedback from that, Jim. So welcome, Jim. And Maria is STEM specialist teacher from Victoria here in Australia. So you've had a really interesting time just recently. You've been accepted into the Teacher Excellence Program. So there weren't very many teachers from Victoria. So how did that come about, Maria? That's really great.
I just Googling for what opportunities really was available to me through the Department of Ed. So they took 250 teachers through state, independent and Catholic, primary and secondary. So I'm primary. And then you choose your area of focus if you're successful to get in. So you had to do a written application, add any videos that you've done. So I added my Google Trainer application video as part of that application. And then you had to have if you were shortlisted, you had to have a video interview as well, a live video interview.
Maria. Yeah, well done, Maria. That's just admitting this person here. Well done. And we've got small numbers live. So what we're going to do, instead of having breakout rooms, what we're going to do, we've just had a little chat before everyone came on. Instead of having breakout rooms, we'll stay in this one room. And I will be, this is recorded, so it will be available for people who cannot join live. And so what I encourage you to do is listen to each of the presenters. There'll be Chris, Steve and Maria, and they'll have about 15 minutes each, if that's okay. I mean, it's flexible. If someone goes over time, I'm not going to pull them off. But what I encourage you to do, if you're listening, if you're watching live now, or you're going to join later in watching on YouTube, take the time to not only listen to the content, but be aware of how each of these trainer leaders use their time, how they connect with you, the audience, their presentation techniques, and how they share their resources with you, because there's a lot of information that you can gain from just sitting and listening to a Google Trainer. And that's what I missed when I did my trainer application. I tried to do it alone, and I think I would have got through, but it's really nice to be able to sit down and in a group and listen and chat with other trainers, because it's an amazing community. People do have time for you. And I was lucky enough to go to the first trainer workshop in the world, presented by Chris Betcher in Sydney, Australia. And it was
really not have been first one in the world. That might be slightly.
Well, I don't know. There wasn't any else around because I Googled it. I checked it, Chris Betcher. I checked it. So it was a really great opportunity. So what we're going to do now is, I think, Maria, do you want to go first and talk about, just for about 15 minutes, address any of those questions from people about the video application, and then Steve, any of those case studies or any other questions there that you'd like to address, and finish with Chris, who's going to give some ideas on strengthening your skills as a trainer. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Righto then, I'm going to mute now and let Maria go.
Okay.
And look, if people really want to add more questions in the chat, please do so now.
Okay, I probably won't take the whole 15 minutes because I tend to speak fast out of nerves. So you, with your trainer application, try keeping the time frame as you would for Google Innovator if you have done that. There is equal importance with your video as well as the written application. Choose something that you know, like off the back of your hand. I can put in the link of my trainer application. I use both WeVideo and Screencastify for mine, and then jazzed it up within WeVideo with some text and some music and did a bit of overlaying. It doesn't need to be complicated. However, I do think that you should have, by this stage, a reasonable ability to put together a video application. Would you like to add anything, Steve, Jim, Chris?
Hey, look, yeah, I'll add to that, Maria, because I mean, mine, I was going to say very similar stuff to you, is that when you're creating your case study or creating your video, think it now, and this was something that I'm not very good at, was think about what you're going to get done before you do it. I know the first time I started doing some videos, I kind of just started doing stuff and I tend to ramble, and that's really not the best thing to show in a case study. So think about something that you know really well and something you enjoy. So, I mean, I love Google Earth, and I would probably always pick something on Earth, but I go, well, how am I going to incorporate some other things as well? So, you know, I used to do one where you put some data into a form, then you use the form to go into Sheets, and then from Sheets into My Maps, and then from My Maps into Earth. And it's like thinking, what are all these different things I can show, but also concentrate on the trainer side of things. So how am I going to show people how to do things? Because that's what you're thinking about. Is you're thinking about, I am showing my skills as a trainer. So when you're thinking about being a trainer, you're teaching someone how to do it. You're talking them through it. You're explaining what you're doing. So one thing I thought about when I was doing this was, if I could think about when I'm kind of looking at the camera there, I'm looking at the screen, there's someone sitting on the other side, and I'm explaining to them how to do it. Okay, so it's those skills of being a trainer. And the idea is, think of yourself as a trainer, training someone else, and pick something that you know well. Use a tool you know well. So as Maria said, Screencastify or WeVideo, have a go at that as well. It's not the right time to pick a new tool. Okay, use something you know quite well, something that will show well on the screen as well. So again, if we're thinking about doing a massive spreadsheet, which Mr. Chris Betcher is the king of, maybe not a humongous one with thousands of cells. I know we're pigeonholing Chris Betcher as a spreadsheet guy. He does lots of stuff. So I would think, right, what do I want to do? I want to show, this is my lesson. I guess, if I want to do it, I'm going to show people how to go to a place on Earth. So really clearly showing steps of what we're doing, just like when you're doing a lesson plan. The steps, create it, go back over and have a look. And remember, it doesn't need to be an amazing Jim Sill-esque video epic. It just needs to show what you're doing. Okay, so I think for case studies, for me, the biggest tip is pick something you like using, pick something you know how to use. If you get a couple of different applications in together, go for it. Go back over your video, make a little plan, and use a video tool you know well. And it's not the video that's being judged, it's what you're doing. I think it's
absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. It doesn't have to be that Netflix quality, but it does. I mean, people do it on their phones, they have equipment, but they're looking at the camera, even if you have notes behind the camera or a teleprompter, but looking at the camera with a few notes behind to keep you on track. But also to be able to get across that personality, try and relax a little bit. It's really hard to do that in front of a camera. But yes, you're not being judged on your video quality. although, you know, a bit of lighting, make sure that sound is coming across well enough. Also, you know, like I found that when I give a training presentation, it doesn't always go well, but if I look at the feedback and say, right, now I can see where I need to improve or what I need to add into this next time I present something similar, I think that's really a good idea to show that in your application as well. I know I did a lot of differentiation because of a lot of the times when I've done any training here in this area, everyone comes and wants to know about one particular item, but they're all at different levels, just like our students are at different levels. And if you can show an attempt to differentiate and an attempt to say, right, the feedback showed me in that particular case study that I gave for my application, it showed that I needed to improve here, and this is what I'm going to do next time. I think there's always room for growth. Never limit yourself.
And another little tip is, in my video, I had created some GIFs. So that did a demonstration that was on loop of the steps that I took, and that saved time. I could put more content in the whole video presentation because I could speak while they were spinning around as well at the same time.
I think I take more of a design thinking approach to this sort of stuff, and that is, like, I know the end goal I want to get to. If I'm trying to explain something, if I have a strength in this thing, I think I'm reasonably good at taking something and explaining it in simple terms. If I have a strength, everyone has a different strength. Jim's is storytelling. I could listen to Jim tell stories for ages. I know I'm not as interesting as Jim. I have 2 minutes of people's attention, and after that, they'll just wander off, right? So I have to get really good at getting to the heart of something quickly. And so the design thinking approach for me, when I'm thinking about how I would explain something, is like, I know I have a limited amount of time and attention, and I know where I want to get people to, and I have to think about from where I think they are now, based on what they've told me and what I have observed, and where I need them to be. What's the essential stuff they need to know to get there? And I think when you're doing this training, we've all talked about you can do this and you can do that, and don't overcomplicate it, right? Keep it simple. Just think about what's the simplest pathway for me to explain how to get the person from A to B. And that's it. Don't overcomplicate it, right? In terms of picking what you want to do, I mean, I agree with everything these guys said. Pick something you're good at, pick something you like. That's all good advice. But by the same token, when you become a trainer, and maybe not when you first become a trainer, but at some point, if you do training in any sort of seriousness and you start doing it over a period of time, you will or should get to a point where someone could just pull out a topic and give it to you and say, here, teach this right now. And I know when Leslie mentioned I ran that course for them a while back, you know, and I think one of the things we did, Leslie, I had some cards that I gave out to people, and on each card was just a little simple skill, like explain, like, how do you, you know, publish a document to the web in Google Docs, or how do you create a drawing and embed it inside a Google Doc. And they were just little simple discrete skills, and I was literally giving people the cards randomly and saying, teach the person next to you how to do this. You have 2 minutes, go. And as a trainer, you should be able to do that. And it shouldn't be necessarily, I'm going to only do what I'm good at, because ultimately you kind of want to be good at everything. That's what makes you a good trainer. So just a few thoughts there.
But if I could add to that, you don't need to be in a title of training within your school to become a Google trainer. That's not the case for me. So I do a lot of training online or through GEGs, or I do some face-to-face, but also online. And I prepared our whole school when we went into remote learning. So I did a lot of training then.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes schools or your district or region or diocese, sometimes they're a little bit hesitant to say, okay, well, let this person go and do training unchecked. But GEGs is a really great way. Google educator groups, and they are established all around the world. They're run by volunteer educators. If there's one near you, you know, do a Google search for GEGs near you, and they're a great place to form a join a community, but also present and develop your skills, strengthen your skills with a great community of people.
Leslie, I would say that the way to become, the way to do good training is to do lots of bad training. And I mean, what I mean by that is no one's good at this to start with. No one's good at anything to start with. That's that old phrase that everything is hard before it's easy. Right? It doesn't matter what it is, dragon boating, anything. Like you'll suck at it at first, but if you do it enough, you stop sucking at it so much, and you eventually get better, and then you'll be really good. And people look at people who are excellent at something, and they go, "Oh, I wish I could be like that person," but they don't realise that if they were as bad as that person to start with, all they had to do was just keep going, right, and just not quit.
Exactly, I agree with you.
Yeah, on that point, Chris, Maria, you said at the beginning that you speak really fast and you get really nervous, and I know that going back through the trainer innovator with you, that you really did struggle at the beginning with even like having your camera on or speaking to people. So what do you and you've come like leaps and bounds even now, being just pretty casual, just to sit there and go, yeah, I'm not very good at this. So Maria, how do you think you kind of got better at? Was it like Chris said, watching other people? Was it just doing it lots? Was it just kind of having a massive coffee before you start and go for it? What was your sort of secret sauce?
All of the above. Definitely putting myself out there, so making myself vulnerable, because it's the only way I'm going to get better, but also watching a lot of people and take what I like from them and know that what is feasible for myself to try out. But as Chris really said, it's just really, you need to put yourself out there. And I still get nervous. This is probably the most relaxed I've been for a while, but I've been doing a lot lately.
Awesome. And I believe you've even appeared on a couple of podcasts, haven't you?
Yeah, and podcasts, and I was on the Global Anywhere School representing Australia.
There you go. So from someone who was shy and didn't think they were very good at training, look at Maria now. So, it's something, I think you're right, as Chris said, just doing it lots of times. You're not going to get better by just kind of sitting back and watching people. Watching people is great, though. I mean, Jim's left now, but I'm watching a few keynotes by Jim and just going, wow, he's so relaxed and so confident. How do you do that?
Yeah.
And I guess...
Absolutely.
And I think letting go of perfection, really, is...
and that's what I meant by being willing to suck at something. Like you would be terrible at it to start with.
Yeah.
When it happened for me when I was in a school, I was just in a school and I just happened to know this much more than a few people around me. So people would come to me and say, how do you do that thing? And I'd explain it. And then, that starts to happen, and then you start to get the reputation as the person who knows a bit more than everybody else, and suddenly lots of people are coming to you, and suddenly you're explaining lots of things to people all the time and helping lots of people solve their little problems. And and sometimes it's as dumb as the printer doesn't work, in which case it's not really my problem, but it's a problem I help people solve, right? You know what I mean? Then people go, well, I saw you do that thing with the spreadsheet. How did you do that? Or I went to this thing and I saw they did this thing with, it might have been PowerPoint or whatever it is at the time, and you kind of go, oh, let me show you how to do that. And pretty soon you find yourself being the person that everyone comes to, and you're explaining and helping and guiding and training people almost by accident. And almost always when I speak to a trainer, that's how they started, by accident. Just they became the go-to person, right? And then I think from there, what happens is you know a little bit more, and you know a little bit more. And that phrase about to teach is to learn twice. That when you actually are explaining something to someone, it actually helps you learn it probably more than it helps them learn it. So you start to feel much more confident in yourself because you feel like you really understand things well when you have to explain them to other people. And for me, that was the pathway to being a trainer, was just being the person that people started to go to and doing more and more and more of it. And then one day, magically, you start to develop a reputation for something, and the next thing you get an email from someone going, hey, we're running a conference. Would you mind running a workshop on such and such? And like I can see everyone nodding here, right? Because that's typically what happens. And then so you kind of suck it up and pull your boot. Yeah, all right, I'm nervous and I'm scared, but I'll give it a go. When you go to a conference and you present a session, And it goes really well. And the next thing you know, someone's running another conference somewhere and they say, can you come and present at our workshop? And pretty soon you're actually doing this stuff, you know.
Absolutely.
So
And
what happens in the chat?
There's a, just on what Chris was saying, there's a quote that I found. I was doing some research on branding, and it's by Rory Vaden, and he's a motivational speaker for the business sector. I'm not in business, so I've never met him. I've never followed him, but it really caught my attention. He says, we are most powerfully positioned to serve the people we once were.
Yeah, totally.
It's true. We can only need to be 2 skills ahead or just this much ahead of another group of people. But once they start asking you questions, that's when you start honing your skills and developing there. But there's been a couple of questions in the chat here. There's is it Dipali has asked, what is the case study requirements about?
So can I jump in on that one?
Yep.
So Dipali, it's interesting, the case study. I'm always intrigued by the number of people who apply to the trainer program, and then one of the first questions that asks you in the application is to make a list of 5 trainings that you've done. And I've heard a lot of people who go, well, I haven't done 5 trainings. And I guess my answer would kind of be, why are you applying to be a trainer? Like, what is your motivation to want to be a trainer if you're not actually training? And if I just take it back to the example I just said a minute ago about, you know, becoming the go-to person in a school where everyone starts to ask you things, and then suddenly you find yourself, those are the sorts of little training sessions. And maybe you end up doing something like a staff meeting after work, or maybe someone asks you to present at a conference somewhere. And pretty soon you find yourself doing this because it's just become kind of the person that you are, the person they go to. And you find you're doing these trainings. So finding 5 training sessions to talk about shouldn't really be an issue. And if it is, maybe trainers not really the right thing. Maybe it's just not, you're not ready for it yet. I don't know. So assuming you are that person, you've done some training, you're helping people out with their questions, you've maybe presented at a little conference somewhere, run an after-school workshop, whatever it might be, you can probably find 5 examples of training that you've done. And what we want you to do with the case study is to pick one of those examples that you think is a good example of you training. Now, when you do the after school work, when someone just comes and says to you, hey, how do I do that spreadsheet thing again? And you just sit 5 minutes and explain it to them, that's kind of a training. You can count that if you want. If you do an after school workshop for your staff, and you know, after school, you do like a little 15-minute session at the staff meeting, and you explain, oh, here's some cool stuff you can do in Google Classroom. That's a training. But at some point, one of those trainings is probably going to become a little bit more, I guess, official. And you might plan it and have some slides to present, and, you know, give some thought to how you're going to present it. And probably at the end of it, ask for some feedback, maybe send out a Google form with some feedback and collect people's response so that you know when you do this again next time, how to improve it. Okay, that's what we're looking for the case study. So one of those 5 will be, or should be, a kind of a really good example of what you did as a trainer, as a person who does training, right? And included some feedback at the end of it. So the case study then asks you to give, you know, as well as briefly mentioning the 5 examples, pick one of them, go into a little bit of detail about it, share some of the resources you made. So maybe you made a slides presentation, maybe you created a Google Doc to give out to people to share, and hopefully at the end you gave out a Google form and collected some feedback so people could tell you what you did well and what you could do better. And all of that forms the basis of the case study. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's a really good
explanation.
It's a really good point, Chris, I think, about, you know, applying to be a trainer once you're a trainer. So you are certifying your skills of being a trainer. You don't do this to become a trainer.
Yeah, that's a good different. Yeah, that's a good example there, Steve. And I have heard people say, I want to become a trainer, but you know, like you don't become a trainer when you're a trainer. When you become a trainer and get the certified badge, you have been chipping away at it and honing your skills and It's a great community to belong to. It's very supportive. Lots of great resources, a lot of perks, because you get quite a lot of inside information. Things are coming up, but you do get some. You might maybe 3 months or a year's free pro level to try out one of those new pieces of software or a new feature. And the community, joining in the community and being able to ask questions and get guidance to keep strengthening those skills so you can train the people that you're working with.
There's a phrase I use: you can't steer a parked car, right? You can get in a car that's not moving, you can try and move the steering wheel, but it's really hard. You won't really learn anything about driving from sitting in a parked car. It's got to be moving. And it's the same with learning to be a trainer. You can't steer a parked car. You can't correct and get better at something unless you're moving. And the point of becoming a trainer is not so you can learn how to use Google tools. Like, that's what level 1 and level 2 are for. By the time you get to trainer, we assume you know how to use the tools, right? But think of a trainer as more like becoming a driving instructor. It's someone who's not learning to drive. They're learning how to teach other people to drive, right? So we assume you can drive already. And the assumption that you can drive already comes from the fact that you've been driving. And that's why we say you probably should have 5 examples of trainings you've done, because you can't steer a parked car. We can't help you if you're not in motion.
Nice. And I think there's a question there about swag and perks and things. I think, Leslie, you hit on it there. So I think the biggest perk of becoming a trainer is the network and the amazing people that you have at your disposal. And I remember when I was running a level 1 workshop, we're doing a certification, there's something went wrong, and my mate got on the old interwebs, jumped into the old Google group with the trainers and went, "Help, this just happened," and got back about 7 replies straight away saying, "Do this, 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 and you're good." And it was a problem with a setup we're using, and they were, "Yep, do this, this, this. We've seen it before," and we were right in the middle of an exam, and he managed to fix it. Done, and off we go again. So it is that amazing trainer network that you get connected with, and you've got people who are absolute legends at training, people who are beginning, people who know amazing things about little tiny niche parts, and other people who know absolute heaps. So I think realistically the biggest perk is that network of people you get connected to, because it's amazing.
Yeah, and Steve, often a lot of us were the nerdy teacher, the only nerdy teacher on staff. And people, I mean, sometimes I'd come into school and say, I saw something great last night. And literally people were doing combat roles in the hallway to get away from it, because they were just like, "Oh no, Leslie's on it again." And it's really nice. It was really nice to join a network of other nerdy people who lift you up and give you confidence, and then you're able to hone your skills, learn more, feel more confident, come back and be able to support your staff, colleagues and friends.
Yeah,
totally.
Valley says, yes, I can relate to that. No, it is. It's embarrassing.
I was just saying, Leslie, I'd stand up at a staff meeting and everyone go, "Oh, here we go again. What's he going to do?" And it's like, I'm not going to apologize, because this is amazing. Try this.
I get memes sent to me. Turn it off and turn it on again.
Ironically, it works most of the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, I thought that might be helpful in the time we got left, Leslie.
Yes.
I just took some slides that actually go through the trainer process. I just want to can we all walk people through this together?
Yeah, I'd love that, Chris. Thank you.
So what I did the other day, I actually went through the trainer application process myself, just like, because I became a trainer a long time ago, so every now and then I go back and look at the process to make sure it's what it should be. So I just want to step people through this, and please guys weigh in on anything as we go through this. But like, as you go through, so first of all, you need your level 1, you need your level 2. That's the assumption that you have those under your belt. Okay. And then you go to the trainer page on the Teacher Centre and you apply. So you click this red button that says Start New Application, and that's how you get started. Now, the next question.
Can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
I know it's something we talk about a lot, but it's the email you register with.
Oh, yeah.
Good pro tip there, Mr. Betcher.
Absolutely. Level 1 and level 2 and trainer and innovator and coach, you need to have that same email.
Yeah.
It took me a year to get that fixed.
So
But
when I became a trainer, I applied with an email address, like everyone does. And had I used my school email address at the time, I would have had to untangle a whole lot of stuff now, because I no longer work at that school. And in fact, even the next job I have, I don't work there anymore either, and I don't work there anymore either. And so, don't use your school email address, right? I know many of you are career teachers and you plan on being there, and they'll carry you out in a box, but that may not happen, right? So use an email address that is personal to you, that travels with you.
Or start a new one. I mean, I started a whole new one. So I was GOCZ, and that was going to be my trainer email.
Yeah,
Right.
I did too. But just on that point as well, what was I going to say? I was talking to Andy Caffrey, Google Program Manager, Innovator person, Manager. He said, it's really a good idea for Google to find out how many schools how many people from certain schools and all around the world have applied for any one of those programs. So put the school in as your secondary email. And I thought that was a really sensible idea. So you're giving that data to Google, but you've got your own email, and you can change the secondary email quite easily without taking a year and making friends with people who fix databases for a living, as I did.
And so just on that, when you do your level 1 and level 2, and you use the service called Web Assessor, which is run by, who's it called?
Criterion.
Criterion, thank you. When you fill out your profile on Web Assessor on Criterion to create your account so you can do your level 1 exam, it asks for your email address there too. I would also recommend you use a personal email address there as well. But when it asks for a secondary email address, like Steve said, you put in, like if you want to put in a work address, that's great. And we actually encourage that, because from Google's perspective, when we're trying to look at back-end statistics and say like how many schools have got trainers and like how many countries, and the only way we can tell a lot of that stuff is by looking at school email addresses, or where people are actually registering from with that domain. So advice is use your personal address, but put a backup one in as your other address, so things can be sort of satisfied. I'll be satisfied. Can't get no satisfaction. When you fill in the form out to apply for trainer, this is where you start. So it asks for your personal details. Just add that in there, and like personal information, personal email address. Down the bottom there, then it asks for contact information, and you put contact information there. That's all the easy stuff, obviously. When you get to the next page, it's going to ask you what language you want to do your trainer application in. And you can, I think we've got like 13 languages or something now you can pick. That wasn't always the case, so we're really glad to be able to do that now. Pick your language, then you go through and you put the school in, and this is where it asks for your education domain name. So if you are in a school, you can put that in there. It's not a required field, so if you're not in a school, that's okay. You just leave it blank, but put in whatever you can put in there. That's all the easy stuff, obviously. Now, here's where we get into training experience. So it's going to ask here for you, do you have any degrees? It's no problem if you don't, okay? You don't have to be a PhD or something to do this. So if you've got a degree, put it in there. That purely just helps from our perspective to sort of know the kinds of people that are sort of becoming trainers. Classroom experience, coaching experience, Google-specific trainings. We'll get to that one in just a sec, right? But you want to list 5 Google-specific training sessions that you've conducted. That comes back to what I was saying before about, like, by the time you get to applying for training, you should have 5 trainings under your belt somewhere, right? And if you're not, then maybe not ready yet, okay? So list the 5 trainings.
Just before you go on, at the end of each of those pages, there's an option on the real pages. There is an option to go to the next page or save till later. And because I'm such a messy person, I copy all that information out and I put it in a Google Doc.
Yeah.
And I've got it in a Google Doc, and I'm changing the words and making sure that they are trimmed down to the number of characters or words that you're supposed to put in. But I found that really helpful. So it's really user-friendly. Absolutely.
So there's your 5 trainings you're going to put in, all that information. I mean, this is pretty easy stuff. Not hard to answer those questions. There's an optional section here that if someone else referred you to the program, so maybe you went and did a course with Deploy Learning, or however you found out about the trainer, if you did train with someone to become a trainer, really helpful for us to have this information here. It just helps us know, again, where we can help guide the program and help direct funds, that kind of thing. Down here, it's one of the requirements of when you become a trainer, and again, I say that because the point of being a trainer is to train, right? So there's an expectation that once you become a trainer, you will actually do some training. And we would suggest that you should probably do at least 12 trainings annually, right? So there's a question here that just asks you, how do you expect to be able to reach that goal? And you might put in something here like, oh, well, I run after school workshops for my teachers on a regular basis, or I regularly get asked to present at conferences, or, I run my own business and I do trainings. Whatever it might be for you, just give us a little idea here about how you expect to be able to do the 12 trainings a year. And my gut feeling is this: why do we put this question in there? I guess because if someone gets to this question and they're not sure what to write, now is the time to find out about it, not in 12 months when you fail to requalify because you didn't do 12 trainings, right? You should know going into this that, yeah, of course I'll do 12 trainings. I'll be busy as, bro. Okay.
Oh, I love how multilingual you are, Chris.
Oh, you like that? Yeah, sure, yeah. Bro.
Nice.
And then here asks for your Google for Education certifications. So remember, we've got to have a level 1, you've got to have a level 2, and you also need to do a thing called the Trainer Skills Assessment Certificate. And so those 3 prerequisites need to be included. So you need to click on the Choose File button, upload your certificate into the form here. Please note, you've got to upload the certificate and not the badge. So just because you get a little neat badge that says you got a level 1, that's not what we're after. We need the actual PDF certificate, and it needs to be attached and uploaded. And we need the level 1, level 2, and the Trainer Skills Assessment. If there's anything else you've got in here, maybe you've got a special award for being an amazing teacher, or whatever, you presented at a conference and got a special recognition PDF or something for it, feel free to add it, but the last bit's optional. Any thoughts on that one, guys?
No, it's really good. I think earlier, one of the earlier slides that asked about your domain, and if we come back to perks and things, one of the other fantastic perks you do get is you get access to your own educational domain for doing trainings with. So obviously you might not be there at the beginning, but once you've done it, you may then have access to that trainer domain, which is so great. You get your own little, you get to make up your own little kids and do all your own work, and you have your own little schools.
Yeah, I can show you that. I'll show you mine because we're logged in as me here. I'll show you that later if you want.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So let's get down to syntax. Now, all that beginners, all that stuff we just talked about is fairly easy. It's asking your name and address. Like you know that stuff. Let's get into the actual difficult stuff now. Now, this is talking about the case study. Like I said before, you've nominated 5 examples of having done some training. We want you to pick one of them and just provide greater detail on it, right? And just read each of these prompts carefully and just answer the questions. So the first one says, describe the single training. How did you demonstrate how to use the tool? How did you show them effective and efficient ways to integrate this tool in the classroom? You've only got 200 words, so you don't have to write a lot about it. Just a little simple description here. I did a training on Google Docs and Google Sheets for staff members who are running some work for their Year 7 English class, and I helped them design an interesting project using these tools. I don't know, something like that. It doesn't have to be complicated.
And if you hyphenate a word, it becomes one word. just saying.
So that's the trick, is it, Leslie? You just have lots of hyphenated words.
Saver. I mean, it was really difficult to get my words down to any word limit. I had to do the Condo Marie of all word sweeping through. So.
The second question here says, what actions did you take to engage the adult learners in the training? And you should know by now that teaching an adult, a room full of adults, is a little bit different to teaching a room full of kids. Adults tend to be less compliant than kids. You can't demand adults go and do something the same way you might be able to get away with kids. Probably shouldn't do it with kids either, by the way, but you can get away with it. You won't get away with it with adults. you should probably think about, how you the thing about teaching adults is you really have to cater for individual things they need to know, much more than you do with children. Okay, so given everything you know about adult learning, and if you don't know much about adult learning, go and Google it, look it up. There are some key principles here. How did you deal with that? How did you differentiate for training? How did you deal with the person who came into your room who knows a whole lot already versus the person who doesn't know how to turn their computer on, right? How do you deal with that adult situation? So give some information here about how you dealt with that. Then links to training material that you used and created. If you're training a group, hopefully you've got some slides, maybe you had a handout, maybe you created some worksheets or some activities or whatever it might be. You've hopefully created some materials to help you do that training. Provide a link to them so we can see the sorts of stuff you're producing, right? When you do that, it'll be hopefully a Google file, slides, docs, sheets, whatever it might be. Please make sure it's set to anyone with the link can view. You would be amazed at how many people put in a great trainer application, but they forget to share their documents and we can't see them, so they just get knocked back. Steve, yeah.
I think you make a hot tip there, Chris. Maybe don't upload a .doc or a .pptx, because remember, this is a Google Trainer certification. It is not one of the other ones. So not a fruit trainer and not the Mr. Trainer. You're using Google tools. So maybe you're doing this, highlight them perhaps.
The other thing, so I've marked a lot of trainer applications. I've assessed a lot of trainer applications over the years. It's always intriguing when you get to that bit where people are providing training materials. Sometimes they will provide them to you literally as a Word file or a PowerPoint file, and you kind of think, what's going on? Why are you applying to be a Google trainer if you're clearly still living in Microsoft land? But even I see a lot of people who they will provide, say, a Google Doc, but it's very clear that it started life as a Word file. When you open a Word file, it uses whatever that font is that Word uses, and it's got the little blue title headings and stuff. Like, Word files have a look, Google files have a look. If you just take a Word file and just convert it to a Google file, you can still tell it was a Word file, right? Please, at least change the font, do something, right?
Absolutely. And Chris, you always have a great advice about put everything, create the folder, set it to anyone with a link can view, and everything you put into it inherits that permission setting. So every time you put your PDF for your level 1 and level 2, and your PDF for your trainer assessment skills, and your video, that's really great advice.
Yeah, it's really easy because you've got to apply all these documents you're providing. It's really easy to overlook one. So as Leslie says, just create a folder, share the folder. Anyone with a link can view. Put all the stuff in that folder, and then hopefully that'll make sure nothing gets missed. After you've done the training in your case study, hopefully you've asked for some feedback from your attendees. And it should be like, what's your name, what's your email address, what's your previous experience level. There's lots of ways you can design a feedback form. And, I know in the trainer courses that we run, if you do the trainer course online through the Teacher Centre, it talks a lot in there about how to design a good feedback survey. But you should be asking for feedback from your attendees about what did they learn. Otherwise, how do you know you've succeeded, right? If you don't ask for a kind of almost like a pre-test and a post-test, or getting people to at least self-assess, how much do you think? How much do you feel you knew about Google Sites before we started? After the session, how much do you think you knew about Google Sites? Like, there should be. Well, I was a 5, now I'm an 8, right? Whatever it might be. You should be providing some sort of feedback or collecting some sort of feedback, right? Because that informs your practice, so next time you run something, what you need to make better, okay? So assuming you've collected that feedback, please include a link here. Give us a link to the form you used. Give us a link to the sheet that fed from the form so we can see the responses. And please don't do that thing that I've seen so many people do over and over again, where they go, oh, I've got to provide a feedback form. Oh, I forgot to do one. Oh, I'll just make one and I'll just invent 5 people and I'll put it in there and I'll just put. We can tell when you do that, right?
Yeah, when you see Harry Potter, and we know.
But even when people write their answers in, like it's like someone fills in the form 5 times pretending to be 5 people, and by the way, 5 people is probably, it a bit more ideal to have more. But you know, they write the same thing over and over. Anyway, we can tell. Trust us, we can tell. Get genuine, real feedback forms from genuine, real training that you've done. And then the last bit of this is for you to do a little self-reflection here to say, okay, well, I ran the training, I've collected the feedback. If I was to do this training again, how would I do better? What would I change? And so have a little self-reflection here about how you'd improve it. What would you do differently next time? Because if you're just going to do the same thing over and over again without taking the feedback into account and improving from it, you'll never get any better. Okay, so that's that bit. And then let's just talk about the video for a second. I know we're running out of time rapidly here, but the trainer video, people stress out about this way more than they should. I think we've talked about it a little bit earlier in this session. Like, it doesn't have to be a Cecil B. DeMille production. It doesn't have to be a major thing. It's a 3-minute video. The first minute is you just telling us a little bit about who you are and why you want to become a trainer. Hi, my name's Chris. I work in a school in such and such where my responsibilities are blah, blah, blah. I've always wanted to become a Google trainer because I really like the idea of helping other adults, and I think it's something I'm really good at. And so blah, blah, whatever. 1 minute. Just tell us a little bit about you. Then in the next 2 minutes, go into a screencast that just picks one simple skill, or as Steve mentioned, you might want to, app smash a few things together if you've got the time and patience and skills to do that. That's always nice if you can do that. If you can app smash a couple of things together, make it a little bit more interesting. But basically, we want to be able to see that you can train. And I'll give you a little tip here. We don't do this anymore. Now, when people from other countries that don't speak English apply for trainer, we actually have people assess those applications in that language. So if you speak Hindi or Japanese or whatever it might be, we will get a person with that language to do the assessments. But here's a dirty little secret for you. There was a time when we couldn't do that. We didn't have people who spoke those languages, and we were sometimes assessing people's videos and we couldn't actually understand what they were saying because we didn't speak that language. But you can tell someone is going to be a good trainer. You can tell by their voice, by their body language, by their excitement, by the passion that comes through. And you don't even need to hear the words. You don't even need to know what they're saying. You can watch what they're showing, listen to their demeanor, and you know they're going to be a good trainer, right? Versus other people who we might speak the same language, but like the hello, my name is Chris, and I'm going today show you how to do that doesn't work, right? If you want to become, what we want to see in the video is your personality and your passion and your excitement for what you're doing. And that comes through no matter what language you speak, right? And if you are missing that, it doesn't matter what language you speak either. So that's what we're hoping to see in the video. We're hoping to hear some excitement in your voice, some modulate your voice, use loud voice, use soft voice, like just be you, right? But just catch our attention. And I say that not because you're trying to impress us or anything like that. It's just that that's what makes a great trainer. So when you do the video, 1 minute about yourself, short introduction, 2 minutes how to use a tool, short thank you at the end, done. Okay, don't overcomplicate it.
But also with that, Chris, I think one thing I found when I did mine was I started really nice, and then by the end I was speaking about 1,000 miles an hour because I realized I was really rapidly running out of time. So yeah, as you say, plan what you're doing. If you don't feel like you can cover 2 or 3 apps at once, don't, because you will end up racing to try and squish it into the end.
Well, the other thing I'd say on that too, Steve, is like, this is not live, right? It's a video. Like, if you record it and it sucks, do it again. If you record it and it sucks, do it again. If you record it and it sucks, do it again. Like, it's a video. Throw it away. Like, if there's no trouble with recording something and throwing it away. If you do your video, if you submit anything that was in the first 5 takes, you probably haven't really given it enough thought, honestly. Because I can't get anything right. If I'm trying to be really good at something and really succinct, I need 4 or 5 takes just to get to the point where I'm happy with it, right? So don't be afraid to just record it, throw it out. And if you're not sure, record something and get someone to look at it for you. Get a friend or a family member to look at it and say, can you give me 2 minutes, watch this video, tell me what you think. Like if they're falling to sleep during the video, that tells you something. If they're confused at the end of it and they go, I don't understand what it was you tried to explain, it, like that'll tell you something. You take the feedback from an audience at that point to fine-tune the video so that you get it right. And I can tell you from personal experience, I became a really good trainer from doing lots of screencasts. I've done screencasts for years and years and years, and almost never will I release a first take because I just never get anything right the first go, and do it over and over and over again. I recorded a set of screencasts for a project many years ago. First time when I first started doing this, there was 80 short videos I had to make, right, for part of this project. But I calculated that I recorded something like 700 takes to get the 80 videos, right? Now, you might not be as bad as me. You might be way better. But what I'm telling you is you get better at something by being bad at it to start with. And then you get better and better and better, right? So don't do first takes. Don't feel the pressure you need to do that.
Thanks so much, Chris. That's excellent advice. You know, we wish you well. Please keep in touch with us. If we put our Twitter handles in here, we're quite happy to answer your questions here. And I've got a feedback form for you to pop it in there.
Dipali has a question, Leslie.
So,
hey, I'm just going to drop a link in the chat as well. This was a document that I wrote the other day too, just like a summary, a one-page, it's not quite one page, but over one page. Like, what do you need to know to become a Google Certified Trainer? And so everything you know is here, like just summarized in one step. So
you're going to drop that link in here? Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
there.
It's a bit like this, says how to become a trainer.
Very good. So grab that link. I'm just going to take it out now. And what I will do is when I upload this into GlobalGEG YouTube account, I will send out that YouTube link and any of those other links that have been dropped in here. So I think that just the feedback form and yep. Okay.
Dipali
I had a quick question.
Yes. Yes.
The videos that I have of past trainings, they're all part of boot camps, and the whole video goes continually. And how do I go about with linking?
So you created a video for a boot camp session. So have you got the YouTube link?
Yes, I do have the YouTube links. Yeah. So I have done sessions in person in my own school, and then I've been doing GEG sessions with the various Indian GEGs. I'm based in Canada, but I was doing 2 or 3 different languages in India throughout COVID, and those are parts of the boot camps that Reshma did, or Dr. Warrior did, or Narjeet did.
Mm-hmm.
So
can you get
my clips would be part of the whole thing. So when I have to share links of the 5 sessions that I've done for.
So Dipali, what I'd suggest is, so if you've got those sorts of videos online and you'd like to submit them as, you know, work samples basically, then feel free to do that. I wouldn't worry about submitting one for all 5 trainings, just focus on the case study. So when you submit your case study, just include some links to some resources you use, maybe the slides or, you know, a doc, or if you've used something. And if you want to include a link to the video, that's fine. The reviewers probably won't watch all of it. They might just click into it and watch a few minutes of it. You can, in a YouTube video, link to a specific point in time. So when you're watching a YouTube video, if you pause it at the correct time and then right-click on the little playhead at the bottom, you can actually copy the video at that particular time point.
Okay.
So if you give us that link, when they click on it, it'll jump to that part of the video. So that's fine. But we're not talking. You're not talking here about using that video as part of your application video, right?
No, not the application video. That would the 3-minute would be a separate one, of course.
Yeah. No, the application video should be something that's made specifically for the application.
Right. Chris, the slideshows that we made were also one massive slideshow with each of us having our slides in there. So would it be okay for me to extract my slides and submit those separately?
Look, that's okay. If it's a group effort and you've contributed to it, I'd say just submit a slide deck as it is anyway. And you might want to just make a note of that when you put in the description. You just make a note that this was a collaborative project, that you were one of the team that helped build the resource.
Right, and your slide deck started at slide 22.
Yeah, I can certainly specify what numbered slides were my slides.
Yeah, same thing though. When you take the URL for a slide deck, if you're looking at slide 22, when you get the URL, it'll link to slide 22
right, yeah.
when someone opens it. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's fine. No problem.
Awesome. Thank you.
All
this
right.
was useful.
Micah or Eubus, do you have any questions?
Any other questions there? Let me back up through this chat here. No. Okay.
Hi.
Yes, Micah. Yes.
I'm from Philippines. My concern is how does the video of the applicants of the trainers evaluated? Because based on my observation and experience, some of teachers or maybe some of the applicants, they are just collecting badge, but they don't exhibit training. So
Yeah, I know. I totally agree with you. And I think there are a lot of people who want to become a trainer simply so they can get the whole set of badges.
yeah, yes.
That's the wrong reason. And it's like I said before, like if you're not already training, if you're not planning to do 12 trainings a year, then becoming a Google certified trainer is really not the right decision for you. You should, there's other things you should spend your time doing.
Yeah, maybe I think we need to have each country to have one representative to evaluate the video, because we're on the field. We see who are working, and in that way we can limit those trainers who have a passion in sharing, not just
No, I totally agree with you. Look, at the end of the day, we can't stop people from applying. And if people feel that they want to apply and they provide all the right information and they make a good application, then, everyone's willing to apply. Whether they continue it on, I guess that's the other question.
No, I think that's a good point, Chris, when you say if they choose to continue on. Yes, some people just get the badge and that's the end of their experience. But when you are truly training, you are still continuing to work with people, network with people, develop your skills. It's a journey. You're on a journey and you keep journeying towards growth and perfection, if you like. So if you are a trainer who has that attitude, you're going to get a lot out of it. But trainers who just get the badge and are happy with that, sadly, that's all I get.
Yeah. You can always tell too, Mike, it's interesting when people apply and you kind of, you look at they've got their level 1 and their level 2 and they're this and they're Microsoft this and they're Canva that, and then they're a Screencastify certified expert and they're blah, 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 blah. They've got all these different badges and you kind of go, oh, that's really all this person is interested in, is just getting the badge. Yeah. But, we can't stop someone from applying, and we wouldn't. Because maybe they don't know that for a trainer. There is a requirement to do the 12 trainings a year, and we do conduct a survey with everyone every year to ask them to list the 12 trainings they've done. And if someone isn't doing the work, basically, then, you know, their trainer status gets turned off at some point.
Yeah, I know we have a lot of trainer here in the Philippines, but very few are working to train teachers and students.
Yeah,
I'm
that is,
concerned with with the perks. I think they're just collecting it or what. Maybe in somehow we can raise the bar of to become a trainer, so we can limit and we will know who are very passionate and who has heart in sharing.
yep. Well, no, I totally agree with you in principle. In practice, it's a very difficult thing to try and enforce, because, you know, we can only take people at their word, and if someone says they're going to be a trainer and they fill in all the right forms and they provide all the right details and they seem like they're good, I mean, it's not up to us to say no. So, but you're right. This is like everything else in life. It doesn't matter whether it's, you know, taking up a sport or taking up a hobby or becoming a trainer. Lots of people start. Some people take it seriously. Some people do a little, and some people do nothing. And that's just life.
Yeah, it's easy to start something. The sustainability is key.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that bell curve happens in every aspect of everything that humans do. It's not just this.
So thanks so much, Chris and Steve and Maria, for coming along to help these amazing people through their questions. And there are people who are going to be watching this later on, and I'm sure they're going to get just as much out of this session as well.
Thanks, Leslie. Thanks,
Okay.
Maria. And
Thank you.
I'm glad the GED is doing this kind of stuff to help, you know, spread the word, find new trainers.